Picture it. It is Friday afternoon. You are exhausted from a long week of work. You just received your bi-weekly paycheck and you open your phone to log into your mobile banking app. A notification pops up. You see the digital deposit clear. And you watch your account balance increase by exactly $2,000. You let out a breath you did not know you were holding. You feel a momentary, comforting sense of security. When you look at those digital numbers glowing on your screen, your brain automatically translates them into physical reality. You visualize crisp stacks of green cash. You imagine them sitting safely inside a heavy, reinforced steel vault at your local branch, guarded by cameras and thick metal doors, just waiting there patiently for you to need them to buy groceries or pay rent. This is the fundamental assumption we all share about how the financial system works. It is the comforting story we are taught from the exact moment we get our very first piggy bank. You believe the relationship is simple, honest, and straightforward. You give the bank your hard-earned money, the literal representation of your time and sweat, for safekeeping. The bank acts as a highly secure storage facility. Sure, you know they do not just let it gather dust. You figure they probably take a small, reasonable portion of it and lend it to your neighbor down the streets so he can get a mortgage, or to a local bakery to buy a new oven. In exchange for letting them use a little bit of your money, they pay you a tiny fraction of a % in interest for the trouble. It feels like a fair, sensible arrangement. A symbiotic relationship where your wealth is protected. But that deep sense of security is a complete illusion. The vault is essentially empty. The money you just deposited is not sitting in a little digital box with your name on it. It is not waiting for you at all. In fact, the exact moment that $2,000 hit your account, you did not just store your money. You crossed an invisible financial line. Without realizing it, you unknowingly provided the exact legal alibi the bank needed to invent entirely new money out of thin air. You walked in thinking you were a valued customer renting space in a secure vault. You did not realize you were simply handing them the raw material to power their own private printing press. You are the mark in this scenario. You think you are using the bank as a convenient storage unit, a fortress that guards the physical manifestation of your time and energy. The reality is entirely backwards. The bank is using you as a regulatory loophole. When they approve a car loan for the guy down the street, they are not quietly slipping him the $2,000 you just deposited. They are not transferring your hard-earned cash from your account into his. They do not touch your money to fund his purchase. Instead, they are looking at your digital deposit and using it as a golden ticket, a legal permission slip to counterfeit digital currency. They do this completely out in the open, and completely legally. The invisible mechanism governing this bizarre reality has a very specific name. It is called fractional reserve banking. Combined with the immense power of commercial bank credit creation, it sounds like a dry, tedious phrase you might deliberately ignore in a high school economics class. But do not let the boring terminology fool you. This is the hidden engine driving the entire world. It dictates everything you buy, everything you owe, and the shrinking value of the bills sitting in your wallet right now. To see the truth, you have to grasp the core law in finance. It is a rule that violently defies everything common sense tells you about how the world works. Here is the secret. Commercial banks do not lend out existing deposits. They do not take Peter's careful savings to fund Paul's ambitious loan. That is a myth. Instead, when a bank issues a loan to a homebuyer, a loan officer simply opens a software program and types brand new numbers into a computer ledger. They create new money out of absolute nothingness at the exact microsecond the borrower signs the contract. Your actual deposited money just sits in the background, serving a completely different purpose. It acts as the tiny, legally required anchor that satisfies government regulators. That little anchor allows the bank to cast a massive net of newly invented credit into the economy. You provided the single brick. They used it to legally justify building a towering skyscraper of debt, and they keep all the rent. Let us track exactly how your single brick builds that skyscraper. Using your $2,000 deposit. When that money hits your account, the bank is legally required to hold onto a tiny fraction. Let us say the reserve is 10%. They lock $200 in their vault to satisfy regulators. What about the remaining $1,800? They do not lend your specific $1,800 to a local bakery owner needing an oven. Instead, the loan officer uses your deposit as proof of reserves, then types $1,800 of brand new credit into the baker's account. That money did not exist 5 minutes ago. You still have your $2,000, but the baker now has $1,800 too. The baker buys the oven. The supplier takes that $1,800 and deposits it into their own bank. Now the cycle accelerates. That second bank holds 10%, which is $180, and types $1,620 of entirely new money into existence for someone buying a car. This digital cloning echoes through the financial system. Deposit. Hold 10%. Invent the rest. By the time this mathematical chain reaction finishes, your initial $2,000 has been leveraged to create nearly $20,000 of brand new money circulating in the economy. Think about the audacity of that math. The banking system collects high interest on the $18,000 they pulled out of thin air. And your reward for enabling this massive wealth generation. They pay you a microscopic 0.01%. This compounding multiplication is not a localized glitch at your neighborhood branch. This is the fundamental architecture of the global economy. When you hear about the money supply, you probably picture a government printing press aggressively stamping green ink onto paper. That is a distraction. Over 90% of all currency in existence right now was never printed by a government. It was typed into existence by commercial banks. They are the true printers of money, and everyday depositors are the raw fuel keeping their machines running. This invisible rule does not just dictate the economy, it dictates your biological time. Think about what money actually represents to you. It is stored energy. You trade hours of your life, your sweat, your stress, and your finite time on this earth for a paycheck. But because banks constantly inflate the money supply out of thin air, the purchasing power of your stagnant wages is financially strangled in slow motion. Every hour of physical labor you sweat for is mathematically diluted by a banker pressing a keystroke. You are literally bleeding time. The value of your past labor shrinks to accommodate the new digital wealth they just invented for someone else. Because the system requires static depositors to act as the fuel for this endless money printer. Your only defense is to invert the relationship. You have to stop being the reserve and start being the leverage. You cannot win by hoarding cash in a digital vault that does not exist. You win by shifting your capital out of static savings and into the very assets the banks are forced to finance. This means utilizing strategic debt to buy appreciating assets like real estate. It means directly owning bank equities that pay dividends. You force the system to pay you the yield of their digital money creation. You let them invent the money. But you own the hard assets that absorb that newly printed currency as prices rise. Finally, you will never look at your mobile banking app the same way again. When you log in next Friday, understand what you are actually looking at. The current balance on your screen is no longer a measure of safely stored wealth. It is a ledger showing exactly how much leverage you are freely handing to an institution that is actively diluting your life's work. They desperately need your deposits to keep the illusion alive. In the end, There are only two positions in this modern financial reality. You are either the passive fuel being burned to power the machine, or you change your strategy. Step up and own the machine.